Meeting to order. Roll call.
Oh, the NBA.
Here.
Sorry,
Whoops.
The Easter comes.
I didn't do that. He did it by himself.
By himself. It was the devil that did it.
Were they going to give us the line?
Mr. Jacobs?
Here.
Mrs. Blackwell?
Here.
Ms. Christie?
Here.
Mr. Landuse?
Here.
Mr. Leonard?
Here.
Mr. D?
Here.
Mr. Duffy?
Here.
Ms. Patras? Here. And Ms. Sturshaw.
Here.
Adequate notice of this meeting of the Bedminster Township Land Use Board was filed with the Township Clerk and sent to the Burnsville News, Burnsville, the Courier News, Somerville, and to all subscribers and posted at Township Municipal Building, 1 Miller Lane, Bedminster, New Jersey, on January 9, 2017.
Stand for the flag salute, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have no minutes tonight. We do have some correspondence. Jeff Lear has asked to withdraw the application for Leamington Road LLC without prejudice. I understand we do not have to vote on that. So I guess it's a done deal for the time being, at least, and
So we can throw out all the material.
we can throw out all the material.
Okay.
Yep, all that paper.
All right, great.
Not Trina can't throw it
I'd like to see if there's any public comments for anything that's not on the agenda. Seeing none, we'll keep going. Determination of completeness. Paul.
We have two on for completeness tonight, and also one for public hearings. The first is the EDC Headworks application. They have requested a number of variances, a number of waivers of submission requirements based on the limited scope of the application, and my recommendation that it be deemed complete. They've provided sufficient information for the hearing.
Okay. Jeff will have to recuse himself from that. I guess he'll recuse himself when we go to hear it. He was notified, the homeowners were notified. Not the associations, but the homeowners.
You should recuse now because we're going to vote on completeness as well.
Okay. And Jeff will be back.
He can come back.
He'll be back later. He has another meeting, he'll go to another meeting and he'll come back. Okay, we need a roll call. You're right.
So actually, is this just roll call? Yeah, this is just for completeness.
For completeness.
It's a motion to deem the application
Complete.
complete and waive the remaining items for completeness. Is there such a motion?
Motion approved. Second.
Now we can do a roll call. Lou and George.
Mayor Parker?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mrs. Blackwell?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Landuse?
Aye.
Mr. D?
Aye.
Mr. Duffy?
Aye.
Mr. Alvini?
Aye.
Ms. Patras?
Aye.
And Ms. Sturshaw.
Aye. And Raritan Family Healthcare, Paul?
This is for a reuse of a building along Main Street in Bedminster Village. I wrote a letter dated September 11, in which I outlined the completeness items. There are a couple of minor items for which waivers are necessary, and there's one missing item, a graphic scale, one of the drawings, which can be added in the future for any plan revision. So I also recommend that application be deemed complete.
Okay. We need a motion for,
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Blackwell?
Aye.
Ms. Christie? Aye. Mr. Landuse?
Aye.
Mr. D?
Aye.
Mr. Duffy?
Aye.
Mr. Alvini?
Aye.
Ms. Patras?
Aye.
And Ms. Sturshaw.
Aye. Okay, we will hear that hearing. EDC, we're ready for you.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the board. Frank Tedesco, the firm of Dilworth Paxson, appearing on behalf of EDC Corporation. Want the board to know that EDC Corporation is now a wholly owned subsidiary of New Jersey American Water Company. When we filed the application, the final documentation had not been provided to New Jersey American Water, and we do have that final determination that the sale from EDC to New Jersey American Water was approved by the Bureau of Public Utilities, so that they are the only owner of this facility at this particular time. The facility we're talking about is Block 59.28, Lot 1. It's 601 Route 202. It's about a 3.73 acre site. The zoning is OR, Office Research, but public utilities are permitted as a conditional use pursuant to section 406.1 of the ordinance. The relief we're requesting tonight is for preliminary and final site plan approval to permit the construction of new treatment works building, which will include additional walkways, driveways, exterior lighting, relocation of still there are
No?
Has a mind of its own.
Yes, right.
not yet.
Right.
There are a number of variances which we explain essentially two of those.
One of the microphones.
Yeah, it was one of them. I think it was that one, but go ahead.
You think?
Go ahead.
Okay.
It's all right now.
Okay. Two or three of these variances, and Mr. Hankins will identify them, are pre-existing non-conforming uses that won't be expanded as a result of what we're doing here. The actual work that's being done is the construction of the new building, and the driveway and some lighting is on the rear of the site. Most of these, many of the variances are pre-existing that are for the original development that we believe was done in the 1980s sometime. So Mr. Hankins will discuss those. Other than that, that is the basic introduction. I'd like to, our witnesses this evening will be James Hankins and Michael Roberti. Mr. Hankins is a professional engineer. Michael Roberti is a representative and a project manager for New Jersey American Water for this project.
Thank you. Mr. Weston, both will stand up and be sworn in there, if they have what I've learned. Gentlemen, please come to that mic. Just raise your right hands. Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please say your names and addresses and spell your last name. My name is Michael Roberti.
James Hankins. I live at 78 Brighton Way, North Brunswick, New Jersey.
And maybe this is your last name. Your last name is R-O-B-E-R-O-T-I.
Hankins is spelled H-A-N-K-I-N-S.
I believe the board has met Mr. Hankins before.
So we'll qualify him. Mr. Hankins, could you state your professional association, your degrees, and your area of specialty as a professional engineer?
I'm a New Jersey licensed professional engineer. I have a bachelor's degree from Syracuse University in civil engineering, and my area of expertise is water and wastewater treatment.
And for how long have you been so licensed?
I have been licensed for 15 years.
And during that period of time, have you been qualified as an expert witness as a professional engineer before planning and zoning boards in the state of New Jersey?
Yes.
And have you ever appeared before the Superior Court of New Jersey?
No.
No. And approximately how many times have you testified before planning and or zoning boards, if you could estimate it, in the last 15 years?
Twice.
Okay. And your expertise is?
water and wastewater engineering and
The board-
building engineering.
Thank you, gentlemen. The board will recognize and accept Mr. James Finken's qualifications as a professional engineer.
We have 7 exhibits, all of which were presented to the board.
And you don't need to separately mark them and just refer to them perhaps by the exhibit number.
That is physically on it rather than redo everyone. Jim, you want to come on up?
In fact, if you want to put that over here, we have sets of this, so if you can name it to the public, I don't know if anybody's here for your matter, interested in your matter, but if you put it over on this side of the table, a little further, the board can look at their copy and you can be showing it in case the public is interested.
Can you face that?
I think we need to have it faced
Oh,
this
yeah.
way, because we can't see it all now. But,
I meant.
yeah, well,
And
We don't know what he's
grab the
re-
handheld mic too, please, so we can get recorded.
I'll get it.
we're just sure that was on. It sounded a little weak on the memo.
Yes.
Oh, okay, good.
Good.
Thank you.
If you stand over here, and there is a gentleman watching, I think, so, or maybe others, and they
Yeah.
can see you and where you point.
Good evening. I'd like to give a little more background on the purpose of this project. The EDC water treatment plant serves tons of Bedminster, Birds, Bar Hills, Peapack, and Gladstone, serving approximately 15,000 customers. The original plant was constructed in the early 1980s, and the plant currently is permitted by New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection to treat up to 2.1 billion gallons per day of wastewater. The treatment facility was designed with what's referred to as a proper headworks facility. Most wastewater treatment plants have a preliminary treatment process called the headworks to remove coarse material from the wastewater stream before more advanced treatment. Over the past few years, the treatment plant has recognized an issue with more coarse material entering the treatment plant and causing operations and maintenance problems, particularly due with the proliferation of disposable products down the sewer. The impacts of this are large coarse materials getting into the plant and causing damage to equipment, to pumps, clogging pipes. This creates operational and possibly compliance issues, and also creates more wear and tear on the infrastructure, thus devaluing its life. The purpose of our Headworks project is to mitigate and remove the solids material and prolong the life of the facility and minimize problems with operations and maintenance. And in turn, this will be a benefit to all 15,000 customers in the system. The Headworks facility is preliminary treatment and consists of screens that remove the coarse material from the wastewater flow. Screens are submerged in the inlet flow in the plant and remove all of the coarse material. The project has 2 large screens that will be serving this purpose. The system will remove the solid material, compact solid material, dewater it, and deposit it in covered dumpsters inside the building. I'd like to refer to the first exhibit I have tonight, which is Exhibit A1. This is a view of the entire property of the EDC treatment plant. And location of our headworks facility is depicted. The lot is an elongated triangular shaped lot. The north end of the lot is directly adjacent to Route I-287. The east side of the lot is abutted by abuts Route 20206. The location of our headworks facility is at the very north end of the treatment plant. The north end of the plant is where all of the flow enters the plant, and the flow moves through the treatment trains from north to south. So therefore, we locate our headworks building at the north end of the plant. This is a retrofit project, so we're to place this there also in terms of the existing infrastructure. It was the only suitable location to place this facility. I do want to mention that the headworks facility is closer to the I-287 side of the property, further away from the neighboring residents across Route 202-206. Exhibit A2 is a site plan zoomed in on the headworks location. It's also referred to as sheet C2 in your drawing set. There's a detailed view of the outline of the building, as well as the existing tonnage and other features. Piping that's underground also depicted on the drawing, and to the upper right is the property line. Again, I-87 is directly abutting the property. Exhibit A3, referred to as sheet A1 in your drawing set, is an architectural plan view of the inside of the building. The footprint of the building is depicted. Center of the building shows 3 channels for the flow to pass through. 2 of the channels show the overhead view of the screening units, as well as the compactors that compact the solids that will be removed from the flow-by screens. This sheet A1 in your drawing set.
There you go. Thank you.
The architectural plan view also shows the piping that's entering and leaving the site. We are, as I said, this is a retrofit project, so we are literally sitting the building over the existing piping that's underground and modifying that accordingly to insert this building and the screens.
Back to that drawing A10, if you could,
Yes.
just for understanding,
A1.
material flows from the north,
Left side of the sheet to the right side of the sheet.
northeast side through the building,
Yes.
that way.
To the southwest, yes.
Thank you.
Exhibit A4 is an elevation view of, set of elevation views of the building. This particular drawing wasn't in the set. This was prepared specifically for the presentation for better visibility.
This will now be an exhibit, so if you would just mark on it, Exhibit A1 in your handwriting.
So the others
No, the others are part of the plan set.
Okay.
The board member noticed and the witness confirmed that this drawing is not part of the plan set, and that's fine. But that's why it will be Exhibit A1.
And just to clarify any confusion, he said Exhibit A1 before, but that's actually Sheet A1.
That's Sheet A1. Okay. Sheet A1 of the plans. And
Exhibit A1, Sheet A1.
this is now the first exhibit, Exhibit A1.
Apologize for that.
Yes, this is Exhibit A1, and it was maybe just identify what it is.
Architectural building elevation sheet. The sheet shows the profile of the entire structure.
Facing which direction?
There are two views. One is this view facing the southwest, and one is the view facing the northwest. The facility has basically a building that is sitting on top of a raised concrete structure. The concrete structure is about 8 feet above grade and contains channels for the flow and for the screens. This had to be done this way to conform with the hydraulics of the existing facility. The screens are quite tall. They're about 8 feet tall, so to enclose them, to protect them from weather, we propose to construct this building over the top of the concrete structure. This will be a concrete masonry building with a wooden truss roof on top. The building, the overall structure height is approximately 22.5 feet above the existing grade, the lowest point. The building has an elevated walkway to access the equipment floor, has proper ventilation. We're proposing a window to let natural light in the building. Next sheet is an additional new exhibit.
That'll be A2, and
This is
identify what it is.
okay. There's another sheet of architectural views of the building. This sheet shows the northeast and southeast views of the building. The next sheet is another exhibit that was not included in the site plan approval drawing packet. It is a computer-generated rendering of the building with a sample color scheme provided. The lower half of this rendering shows the concrete structure that contains the channels and the screens. This structure is the same height as two existing structures on the property, the equalization tank and the flow distribution box. The top half of this rendering shows the masonry building. This sample color was chosen as an example. In terms of the color of the building, is something that amenable to working with the township on selecting a color or choice of colors. It's at the board's discretion. The view of this drawing is facing from the west. Next exhibit is all the new exhibit, and is the rendering from looking from the east view.
Well, those drawings need to be marked.
First one will be A, second one A.
This includes the exhibits. Yes, sir.
I have a question. This view, is this from Route 206 or Route 287?
This view is from Route 206. It's not really visible from Route 206. It's because it's higher than Route 206 and it's set back rather far, and there's the property line is screened with trees. But yes, this is from Route 206.
The other picture would be from 287?
Yes.
And do you know if it's visible from 287?
The building will be visible from 287 given its height. As I mentioned, the existing concrete, the concrete structure of this building is the same height as two other existing structures. So yes, the building would be visible.
About how much, but from 207, 287, excuse me, how far, roughly how far is that building from the road bank, 287?
The building's approximately 30 feet from the pavement edge of 287.
Anyone else on the board? No. Paul? Oh, yeah.
I did have one question about the construction and what happens. Is there a time when no flow is going to be processed? And what happens then?
The construction of the building, there will be a flow bypass system set up to bypass around it so that the plant will still operate continuously without interruption.
Will this impact the quality of the gray water going out at all?
This will improve the quality of the flow that's being treated and going out. Yes.
What's the current treatment or removal of the solid materials? Is that taking place in construction?
Well, there really is no structure that's designed for that purpose. The sewer system has pump stations that grind the solids, but the solids don't get removed from the waste stream. So currently there is no structure designated to remove solids from the waste flow.
That's the purpose of this one?
Yes, this is the purpose. That's the purpose of this Headworks project.
Is it fair to call it, is this a filtration system, or that's removing the solids with a filtration method, or some other?
It's similar. It's a very coarse filtration method. You could think of it that way. There are rakes that are in the flow that have a mechanical conveyor with teeth that pulls the solids out. The solids get trapped on the rakes, and then the teeth of the mechanism removes the solids and deposits them into the compactor and then the dumpster.
So the solids and the compactor and the dumpster, are those devices that are currently utilized? Or
No.
So there's going to be a new dumpster, and is that dumpster depicted on that's not in the building, that's outside the
The
building?
dumpster's external to the building. It's not
That's a new
depicted.
dumpster that's not been there before?
That's correct.
Is there any, I guess, in your presentation, are there any details about the dumpster, whether there's going to be odors or vermin control or anything else that would be associated with the dumpster?
The dumpster will be covered, first of all, to contain odors and prevent vermin from entering the dumpster. There are going to be 2 dumpsters, one for each compactor. There will be approximately 2 cubic yards in size, similar to a typical trash dumpster. And dumpsters will be emptied on a weekly basis, similar to the trash removal.
Two cubic yard dumpsters, that's all you're going to need?
Correct.
And is just in your experience, have you designed these systems before, and what's the material, euphemistically calling it sewage solids, what are you getting in there?
And it's mixed with raw sewage too, isn't it?
Well,
You know every disposable wipe you see advertised on TV? Do not flush down the toilet? Well, everybody flushes them down the toilet, and that's what gets in all these systems.
there'll be a somewhat shredded
Screen.
Yes.
And so where are you going to place these 2 dumpsters? Are they, I'm looking here to see.
I don't see them on the plan.
Either do I.
They will be on the south side of the building. I will refer back to
That's nice.
Yeah.
referring back to sheet C2 from the site plan application packet. They will be immediately to the south side of the building,
Of the new building?
of the new building, yes.
Oh, uh-huh.
Directly against
In
it,
the existing treatment train.
yes,
Okay,
The pavement's going.
correct.
okay.
Now, I know this, my question probably predates certainly New Jersey American Water acquiring this facility, but just curious, why was it not designed back in the 80s with this stuff? Is there a change in code or a change in philosophy? Or were other facilities back in the 80s built with it? Or, it's, you guys aren't responsible, it's just gee whiz.
We can only say that was the selection by the design engineers at that time, and also that long ago, the flushable products, disposable wipes weren't the issue then that they are today.
Board, any?
And this problem is also, this isn't just unique to EDC, this is a problem throughout the entire industry, really a worldwide problem.
Let's feel better. Paul?
I did have a couple of questions in my letter dated September 9th. And I think, item number 1 is routine to have the owner sign the plan. Number 2, I think, Jim, you and I have discussed that as far as updating the zoning table so we get the correct figures on there. I think it's just...
Correct.
It was a misinterpretation of what those figures represent. I think that can be rectified fairly easily. Item number 3, because the increase in impervious exceeds 1,000 square feet, the ordinance requires the installation of drywall and some stormwater management. Have you looked at that at all?
We have looked at that some. We're currently not in a position to specifically state how we want to address that. We would like to defer that issue to, for further discussion with the planning board engineer and the planner.
As long as you're not looking for relief on that, I believe it can be worked out fairly easily. There's a couple of different things I saw that you might be able to do and address that. So if the board okay with that, we can discuss that offline. Comment number 4 talks about the relocation, the potential relocation of an odor control system. Do you know where that's going to be? I didn't see the new.
Yes. It's, currently the system is going to overlap the northeast corner of the building. We couldn't make the building smaller to not move the system, so there's a concrete pad that system sits on. We're literally just going to slide that pad back a few feet just to accommodate the corner of the building, so it's a very minor move.
This building or some other building?
For the new Headworks building.
You show some lighting on the plan, and I know a couple of them are floodlights. It was my recommendation that you use the same shielded down lights throughout rather than the floodlights.
Yes, we'll have shielded lighting.
And I also get to be the planner today, so I'll take that Frank's letter. He had a couple of comments. I think the discussion of where it is relative to the highway was discussed. Frank did bring up the issue of potential visibility from the highway, particularly 287. I think your statement was that the upper portions of the building would likely be visible from 287.
Yes.
Is there any opportunity to do any additional screening in there?
Possibly. We haven't come to a conclusion yet, though. That's an item that we would like to defer for further discussion with the engineer and planner.
Based on my recollection of the discussion relative to the equalization tank, when that application was in here, tank, because it's close to 202, 206, was constructed with a stone veneer, and there's some additional landscaping on there. But one of the constraints on the site relates to the fact that there's so much underground piping all over the place. It makes it difficult to plant much. But I think in this particular case, there's probably an opportunity off the corner of the building towards 287, where it's the closest, to put in a couple of evergreen trees. I think a couple of Douglas firs in there will grow pretty quickly and give some kind of a screen. I think this probably would work pretty well. Frank talked about the lighting, and I think we've discussed that. I assume the lighting will only be on when needed for operations, and then it's not on all night.
Correct.
And what are your operation hours?
Typical operation hours are Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., with 1 4-hour shift on Saturday and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 12 noon.
But these could come on if there's an emergency or some after-hours work.
That's correct.
And that really sums up Frank's report.
Okay.
Carol,
Let's go right ahead.
just a few more follow-up questions. So I take it that there's no additional employees that are triggered by this structure or these operations?
Correct.
And the pickup of the waste, you said that'd be done once a week. Is that consistent? Is that the same type of waste pickup that is currently being utilized at the plant?
Yes.
And same frequency? So no change in equipment, no change in delivery?
So style of dumpster that can be loaded with a standard garbage truck.
And Paul, any ideas on odor control that would be associated with this? I mean, is it adequate what's there now, or just by covering, is that
I think
fine?
by covering and giving, the plant had odor. I don't think this is going to be any more odor than you already have there. I mean, essentially, these are these solids are already there. They're in the system. If they're not in the enclosed dumpster, they work their way into the rest of the system, and they're there. I don't think you're going to have an odor issue here.
Okay.
This is
I had a couple.
this is wet product, right? Or byproduct.
Yes, it's
Somebody is manually raking this or taking it out of your screening system and dumping it into garbage cans?
the screening process works automatically. So the screens have mechanical rakes that lift the screenings out of the flow and into the hopper of a compactor. The compactor helps to dewater the solids, reduce the volume, and the screens are conveyed outside the building through a pipe into the dumpster outside. So the material is wet but damp. It's been reduced from being saturated to being damp.
Handles that goes from a pipe right into these dumpsters?
That's correct.
It's not bagged or sealed or closed in any way. It's going to sit in an open dumpster for a week.
That's correct. So the dumpster will be covered.
Sounds like a closed dumpster.
Correct.
Closed dumpster. You got the lid closed or it's sealed?
The lid will be closed. There will be a pipe that is able to go through the lid, so but the dumpster will be closed.
It's a closed dumpster. No,
Can you briefly just talk about where just for kind of an informational purpose, where the water goes when it leaves the plant, the path it takes?
After flow is treated, is discharged to surface water. It's discharged to a stream behind the plant to the west side of the property that is a tributary of the north branch of the Raritan River.
And is there any agency that monitors the quality of that water? How does that work?
The New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection does. EDC has what's referred to as a discharge permit from the state of New Jersey. In that discharge permit, the requirements to sample the treated effluent on a routine basis and submit those results every month to the DEP.
Thanks.
And as part of this application, you also need to get approval from DEP for the installation of the treatment system?
Yes,
Have you done so?
we have applied for that,
Okay, so
and we anticipate receiving it.
okay.
But you do not have it as of today.
You do not have it?
Correct.
Okay, anyone from the public have any questions? Seeing none, I guess we're ready for your next witness.
I think we'll go for, why don't you discuss the variances, pointing out where the existing ones are that won't be impacted or banned, and the new variances.
You don't have to treat, you don't have to address the existing.
Okay.
But the new, any new that are being are exacerbated.
There is one new condition that requires a variance. It has to do with lot coverage. Because we are adding this building, this new headworks building, and the paving, there is a small net increase in the impervious coverage.
And what's the net increase? Oh, I believe it's 1 point.
That increase is less than 2%.
So it'll go from what percent?
The percent will go from 39.6 to 41.3.
And that includes anything extra that Mr. Ferrero mentioned in his report. He wasn't, thought it might be slightly higher than 2,700.
No, it was just that they have to do stormwater management.
But that they have to do that.
Stormwater management.
That's the delta. Can anyone tell us what the lot coverage percent should be for that specific lot in that location?
Under the
35?
35.
35.
As it, Mr. DiGiovanni, as of today, the existing condition is 39.6, but the ordinance is 35.
And they proposed to go up to 41.3%. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? No. Okay,
Thank you.
okay. Your next witness? Nothing?
And that's basically it.
Okay.
I just may summarize briefly, unless
absolutely.
unless the board has any other questions. We do have somebody here from New Jersey American Water. Other operational questions, if you have any, or suggestions. Mike Roberti is here and is available if anyone has any questions. Essentially, what this is that as the Mr. Hankins has determined, it is a refit of a, with all due respect, probably not particularly well-maintained facility for this town for a long and the 15,000 customers that it serves. And under the law, we do need the variance for impervious coverage, and we will be able to mitigate that as a result. We believe, in working with the planning board's engineer, to create a system where the impervious the water is handled through a drainage system, either through trenching or something that'll satisfy your engineer. Similarly, with respect to the height of the building and its look from 287, we'll work with the planner and Mr. Fierro on or minimize, doing something with that 20 feet more or less that's going to be above the existing tree line. As if people understand, 287 is pretty low. Halfway up is a huge tree line, and then the building sits another 22 feet above that. Interestingly enough, that 22 feet is 13 feet less than your standard house, or at least the ordinance requirements for a height of a home. We think that the project, serves the public good. Obviously, everyone is familiar with the solid waste and what it's causing. I think this is going to be not only for Bedminster but for all 15,000 customers. And when you utilize the word customer in New Jersey American Water's vocabulary, that means the number of houses or facilities. The actual people that are being served is far in advance of that. Some people use figures of 2 to 3 times that in terms of how many people are actually using this particular treatment facility for their solid waste disposal. So we think that this is a plus for the township and all the residents, and with respect, we request the board consider granting us the approval, subject to those conditions about meeting both the engineer and the planner's requirements. With respect to the color of the building, however the board wants to handle that. We've shown a beige type thing. There are a couple different. I mean, we've got 4 or 5 colors, but we were the New Jersey American Water. There is a building that is relatively the same color, and their thought was to do that color. If we need.
I don't think there's any question about color. Anybody?
I think it would be, if the board wanted to specify something, I would say an earth tone.
Color.
The block should be a split-face block and not just a straight, conventional block.
No.
Fine.
No problem.
Okay, Tom, I think we're ready to...
I did have one.
Oh, go right ahead, Nick.
Question that occurred to me is
Okay.
is there any impact to the ratepayer? The cost of all this?
Interestingly enough, in the decision of the Public Utilities Commission, the rates will not be the rates cannot be increased for a period of 5 years, starting I think it was March.
Okay.
So it will take 5 years before any rate.
Nick, that was something that the Township Committee negotiated with
Right.
the applicant.
Right. And we do appreciate that. Okay, Tom.
Madam Chair, we just open to the public in case there's any comments.
Any more questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll go ahead.
So the board is ready to motion to approve the amended preliminary and final site plan with the variance for impervious coverage with the conditions requested by the applicant and discussed this evening, the planners and engineers reports. They'll uses split face block in an earth tone color for the building facade. And they will coordinate their stormwater management to the satisfaction of the township engineer and the additional evergreen plantings to the satisfaction of the township engineer. Expected this evening so they can proceed effective immediately and standard conditions.
Except for they have to have the TWA from the DEP.
Yes, they have to have all other.
All other
And
outside agency
sign.
approvals.
Outside. Do I hear a motion?
Before you vote, can
Yes.
I ask, I'm a little concerned about the additional stink coming from these dumpsters. There's nothing, Paul, that you think can be done to mitigate any addition, I mean, listen, it's a treatment plant, I get it, it smells. But, you know, here we have this damp sewage in a garbage can, basically, not much better than the garbage can on the side of my house for a week at a time in the heat of the summer. I think it's going to contribute to the stink that comes out of this facility. Is there anything that they can do operationally or equipment-wise that can reduce or mitigate the stink?
I don't think so. I really don't think there's anything you can do. It's essentially a solid waste material that's in the liquid effluent that's being pulled out. And when it's being compacted and compressed, liquid comes out of it. So that in my opinion, reduces what can be in there to create the, lack of a better term, ripening of the material. You know, if you don't have the liquid there, it's going to happen at a much slower rate. I think if you open up the dumpsters, you'll get a whiff. It's not a place where I would go have my picnic lunch by the dumpsters, even if they're closed. But I think from a perception perspective, I think it would be difficult to sense any difference in the odors around the facility just because these dumpsters are there.
Okay.
Did you say, excuse me, didn't you say you were going to pick up twice a week? Did you say twice a week? Only once?
Once a week. Though that can be adjusted based on the actual quantity of screenings.
When I was a kid, we used to use lime. I mean, do you ever use lime to sprinkle around the top if it smells?
We haven't done that, as Mr. Ferraro said, by compacting the solids and keeping the moisture, taking the moisture out and keeping that in the channel. That does reduce the odors that go to the outside significantly.
Anything more?
I guess just to follow up on Rich's point, is there anything we can do to, if that was an
If there were a
exacerbation?
problem, if there were a problem and if there were complaints, the solution would be to see the dumpsters more frequently. And the board may want to say, if there's an odor issue related to these dumpsters, then they
Yeah,
have
well,
to
that's
empty them
my
twice a
point.
week.
Yeah, that's condition is, we understand that. The company would do it anyway, but that's fine, fine. If the odors become a problem, a health problem, a safety problem, we'll have to dump them every day.
So Tom, if you could reflect that in the. Sure, there'll be an additional condition that if the dumpsters become a problem with respect to odor or other health concerns, the applicant will have them disposed of more frequently and address the problems. Okay?
I think that's
Best we can do.
appropriate. I think that's appropriate. Okay, so we have a motion? Do we have a motion?
Yeah.
Second?
Mayor Parker?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Stracco?
Aye.
Ms. Christie? Aye. Mr. Landuse?
Aye.
Mr. Deep?
Aye.
Mr. Zupnik?
Aye.
Mr. Travaglini?
Aye.
Ms. Patras?
Aye.
And Ms. Gotcha?
Aye.
Hey, gentlemen, thank you very much for your cooperation and your courtesy. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. We appreciate what you're doing. Yes, thank you.
Putting it in the
It's an improvement, right?
They're coming back in our water, right?
Water, it's like, what's my water like now? It's like
Okay. Do we have any planning board comments? Nothing,
I
Mar?
will only say we made the paper today, but I did not read it. I saw the headline above the fold for last week's meeting. but did not get the
I
paper.
did, I read it, and, yeah. I would say it was pretty accurate as to what the presentation was. And it's all I can say about it. We were all here. Anything else from planning board?
The last thing we have, I think, under the pending application for the planning board is the
Lamington Road?
for 1120 Lamington Road.
Uh-huh.
They have submitted additional information. I quickly looked at it today. In my opinion, it's going to be complete. They've modified the plan because they're not calling it a lot size averaging subdivision anymore because it didn't meet that criteria. It's still a minor subdivision with variances. So my recommendation is that it be scheduled for our October 12th meeting. We have another one on for that, for Crossroads Business Center, and this should be on as well, I think.
Okay.
That's a Crossroads is planning board or Board of Adjustment?
Is the Board of Adjustment? Yes, yes.
And Trina, that October 12th, that date that I ran by you, or my secretary ran by you earlier? Okay, so I've already, I will not be there for the 12th. I know, right.
Okay, I think that's all we have for planning board. You may be excused.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Okay, we are ready for our next application. Brereton Family Healthcare.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Wolfgang Heimer Law Firm, 32 Dumont Road, Far Hills, New Jersey, for the applicant, Scalia Family Real Estate Holdings. We are here today for seeking preliminary and final site plan approval for the property located at 316 Main Street in Bedminster, Block 34, Lot 5, probably more commonly known as the Hurley Insurance Building. We do have a request for a few minor variances, and there are also two currently pre-existing non-conforming conditions. We'll have four witnesses here this evening, a representative of the applicant, Dr. Joseph Scalia. We have Paul Fox, our engineer, Mark Yarrington, our architect, and John Peel, our planner.
Okay.
Why don't you all stand and raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God? I do. And please state and spell your last names and give us an address.
Fox, 13 Dumont Place in Far Hills. Joseph Scalia, Industrial Drive, Burnsville, New Jersey. Mark Yarrington, 676 Route 202-206, Bridgewater.
John Peel, 205 Main Street, Chatham, New Jersey.
Just confirm for the record that the board recognizes and accepts the qualifications of Mr. Paul Fox as a professional engineer and Don Peel as a professional planner and an environmental consultant. I don't think Mr. Yarrington has testified to the work that he has. Explain that, or you can explain his qualifications.
The first witness that we'd like to call is Dr. Joseph Scalia, to give you a little background about the practice, the intent of the building, and the proposed renovations and the purpose for those renovations.
Good evening, how are you? My name is Joseph Scalia. I am the principal at Raritan Family Healthcare. Our primary office is in Raritan, New Jersey, and we have our secondary office, which we opened about 4 years ago at 2345 Lamington Road, where we currently share space with another physician. When we came to that location, the agreement was that after 4 to 5 years that Dr. Bonaventura would move to a different space. She's the owner of that space. Her plan changed. She's going to stay at that location, and we're looking to move to a different location and found 16 Main Street. Our practice consists of 5 physicians, all primary care, and at the Bedminster location, we have 1 physician working at a time. We are all board certified physicians, and we are currently the only practice that treats adults that is not a concierge practice in Bedminster. Concierge practice is a practice in which you have to pay a fee up front every year, ranging anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000, and then only those practices do not accept insurance. The patient is then required to pay a fee for service. As far as pediatrics, we also treat children, generally from birth to the elderly population. Children were the only practice in the township that accepts managed Medicaid programs. Managed Medicaid programs for children or for those who have financial qualifications is covered by the state. So currently in Bedminster, if you do not participate in a concierge practice and you're an adult, you need to leave the town to receive medical care. For pediatrics, if you're part of the population that is underserved and part of the Medicaid population, there is not a pediatric physician or physician that sees children in your township. We've been providing that care for the last 4 years. We'd like to continue to do that.
Dr. Scalia, could you explain to the board what the uses of the building for? Is that only going to be for medical practice or for other purposes?
The first floor, lower level of the building will be for clinical practice, see patients. The upper level with street level. With the building, there's a driveway that goes down to a lower level where the parking is in the back of the building. In the front of the building, there's no parking. So all clinical care will be provided on the low level, so it's handicap accessible to our patients. On the second level, the upper level will be for our billing office, which is currently located in Raritan, but not in our clinical building now. It hasn't been in our building for 10 years. It's in a separate building. We're paying rent there and then paying rent in our Bedminster office, so we'd like to consolidate it to 316 Main Street.
And how many employees do you anticipate working at the location at 316 Main Street?
So in the on the clinical side, we'll have 1 receptionist, 1 medical assistant, and 1 physician. On the non-clinical side, on the upper level, there are 3 billing staff. So a total of 6 staff.
And what is the volume of patients that you would anticipate seeing in a typical day?
Generally during office hours, depending on the type of visit, anywhere from 2 to maximum of 5 patients per hour.
And what are the office hours?
Varies. We try to work around the patient's work schedules. It can anywhere generally from 9 to 5 on some days. On Thursdays, which is my day there, it's 7 to 3. And then on Tuesdays, 10 to 8 p.m. We try to work around patients' work schedules so they don't need to take a day off to come to see us.
And in the application, you're proposing a small addition on the lower level near the parking lot. Could you explain the purpose of that?
The general purpose of that, it's a vestibule for weather, really, during cold weather and inclement weather, with the patient be able to enter into a foyer or vestibule before entering the waiting room.
Is there anything else that you would like to say to the board, Stephen?
I don't think so.
Board, have any questions for this witness?
The hours, Monday through Friday? Are there
Now we're Monday through Thursday. Our goal is to use Monday through Friday.
And so you won't be there on the weekends?
No.
No, just, okay.
Dr. Scalia, is there any plans on expanding to 2 or 3 physicians, or just 1 physician at a time?
Our goal is one physician at a time.
Paul?
My question is for the doctor has been.
Okay, good. Okay. We'll open it up to the public for this witness. Seeing none?
Thank you very much.
Okay, next witness.
Our next witness will be Mark Yarrington, architect.
Good evening. Sure can. It's Yarrington. Mark with a K.
Good evening, Mr. Yarrington. Do you have any, possess any professional licenses with the state of New Jersey?
I do. I hold a license as a professional architect with a degree from New Jersey Institute of Technology.
And how long have you held that professional license, sir?
34 years.
And you have practiced architecture continuously during that period?
I have, yes.
And have you had occasion to testify as an expert witness before municipal land planning boards or youth boards?
Yes.
Board of applications?
Yes, I have.
And approximately how many times have you testified during that 34-year period?
I do 1 to 2 a year, so maybe about 50-ish.
The board will recognize and accept Mark Yarrington as registered architect. Please go ahead.
Mr. Yarrington, Dr. Scalia just discussed briefly the nature of his practice and the purpose of the building. You prepared the architectural drawings for this, is that correct?
That's correct.
If you wouldn't mind, I would like you to go through the concept and the planning of the architecture of the building.
Sure. Be happy to do that. I think you have some plans in front of you, and we have a larger version over there. As you heard Dr. Scalia testify a bit, the goal is to convert the existing 2-story former insurance building into a medical offices on the first floor or the lower level, and the billing kind of general and private office areas on the upper level or the street side. Each floor level is approximately 1,500 square feet in size today. And the project includes really 3 key elements. The first is the kind of repair and refinement of the exterior facades, just kind of perk them up, clean them up. Second are inherent interior renovations that are needed based on the medical use and the billing offices. And then the third key component, which Dr. Scalia referenced, is the small addition at the rear of the lower level or the parking lot side of the building. That addition is approximately 198 square feet, about 7 foot by 27 feet. And it will also include a covered entry portico of approximately 60 feet. The addition itself will provide room needed for the adequate function of the medical offices. And as you heard Dr. Scalia speak of, the proposed addition includes, again, the covered portico with an accessible weather vestibule. Currently, the building, if you don't know if you've ever been there, when it was an insurance office, but you open up the door and the cold air pretty much went right in. The addition also allows for adequate function, excuse me, of the relocated stairway from the first floor to the second floor. Currently, it's kind of right in the middle of the building. That doesn't work well for the proposed design. So we've moved that off to the side, and the addition just kind of helps that function. It also provides some additional accessible waiting room space, so patients aren't kind of crunched up when they're waiting. And it also allows for the reconfigure of the interior of the first floor space within the existing building for a proper and better function, and equally important to meet the barrier-free requirements that we have to comply with today, which currently are not met in the existing building. And as a little bit of a bonus from my architectural point of view, I believe the addition also enhances the exterior look of the rear of the building as you enter from the parking lot.
I don't think any further questions for this witness.
Board, any questions? Rich?
Any thought given to removing the stucco and having the brick be exposed?
The building is not brick all the way around. It's a block on the lower level and wood frame up above, so the intent is to keep the stucco.
So the only brick is on the front where I saw them removing it,
Yeah,
the stucco today?
The corners, I believe the front corners, just a little, yeah, the front and just wrap slightly around the corner, correct. Yeah.
So even on that street side facade, no thought to preserve the brick?
The street side will stay as brick. Yeah. Dr. Scobie, what are we doing here?
The historic committee said we can go either way. We could either paint it again, or we could power wash this and blast it to get it back to the red brick. We didn't know what it was until we started scraping away at it, but it was white brick underneath it, but it's a red brick.
What you thought about the brick?
My preference would be to sandblast it and do a old-looking brick, because that's my preference.
Good idea.
Important. Okay. Paul, anything for?
I don't have any.
Nothing for, okay. All right, and anyone from the public? Seeing none?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next witness?
Next witness will be Paul Vaughn.
The existing site is presently the building that fronts on Main Street, and then a fairly wide paved driveway that leads to a gravel parking lot in the rear of the property. This gravel parking lot extends almost all the way to the rear property line, just within a few feet. I'm sorry. Oh, you're right, I'm sorry.
And we don't have those pages.
They're long enough.
Yes, they do.
I got an existing.
Got to move it along.
Sheet 3. This is sheet 3 of 8 of the plans, the existing condition. So what we're proposing to do is to repave the driveway as well as put curbing in, lean down to the parking lot in the rear. And the parking lot in the rear, we're going to pave and also reduce the overall size of it to conventional dimensions for the parking lot. That'll allow us to return the area that's along the back property line to a more natural state and to plant trees in that area. In the very front of the property, the previous owners installed concrete essentially between the existing sidewalk and the building. And what we're proposing to do is to remove quite a bit of that to give us more space to landscape the front of the building. In the rear of the building, we're going to have a total of 17 parking spaces, which is just a few more than what is required for the property. The overall lot coverage is going to be reduced from 71.58% to 56.77% as a result of reducing the size of the parking lot.
Beyond that, we'll also be putting in conventional site lighting to improve the illumination of the driveway entrance, as well as the parking lot in the rear of the property, and then the landscaping that's shown on the landscape plan. For drainage, there'll be 2 drainage inlets along the back of the parking lot. Those will collect runoff from the parking lot and direct that to the existing storm drain pipe that traverses the property coming from a drainage inlet up on Main Street right now.
Well, could you repeat that last part there?
Sure. The stormwater from the property is in the direction toward the rear property line right now. So what we'll be doing is collecting it along the rear curb line of the parking lot into 2 drainage inlets at either end. There's a pipe right now that goes from this drainage inlet on Main Street to a stormwater manhole and down to this drainage inlet on the property to the rear. So we'll be constructing a new drainage inlet over top of that pipe and connecting the new drainage inlet in the corner to that drainage inlet.
And that will be going to?
Connects to the existing storm sewer here that heads over to the river.
You say storm sewer
Stormwater drain pipes.
that are existing?
Yeah. There's a large one that comes through this drainage easement. There's a large drainage easement right here that conveys runoff that's collected along Main Street to a drain line that goes down to the river from here.
It goes all the way to the river?
You know, I don't know how close it gets to the river, if it actually goes to the edge or if it gets to the...
Yeah. Because behind that property there is the school or that little park.
Exactly,
area.
that's right.
And then there's a parking lot adjacent to that.
Between the school property and the properties that front on 202, or on 202, there's a little bit, there's a culvert where the driveway goes from the school up, and there's a little bit of an open channel that runs through there. So I'm guessing that this goes to that open channel.
Okay.
That's north of the school property.
Okay.
I think that's the...
To mitigate the stormwater runoff, what we're going to be doing is collecting runoff from the existing building as well as the proposed addition, and collecting that to 2 dry wells that are going to be installed underneath the new parking lot, with the overflow connected to the drainage inlets that we're constructing.
So, in summary, the water goes under the field out towards the river and not over the field.
Absolutely. We're not discharging onto the field at
I
all.
just want to make sure we didn't create a wetland there.
No.
You're uphill and that's downhill.
We'll actually be improving things because right now, quite a bit of the runoff from the property does run out to the field. So we'll be intercepting all that and getting it to the drainage inlet before it gets on the field.
Is this park physically separated today from the Desiderios, parking lots, et cetera, or they're all homogeneous right now, aren't they?
There's a hedgerow between the properties, but there are openings there. There's an opening in the hedgerow right here where occasionally you might see a golf cart come from the school up to the deli.
Oh, really?
But is there a reason why you're not closing off the parking lot? You know, why you're not separating them out?
Sure, let's talk about that. The owner of this property has a access easement out to Main Street right here. We're proposing to use that. However, from an EMS standpoint, it's very beneficial to have some connectivity between the buildings here. So if there ever was an emergency on any of these buildings, fire trucks can come in through the back and access the back of those structures very quickly. So my preference is to leave it open, have signage to make it clear that traffic should not be regularly going back and forth there, rather use the individual business entrances.
Can you talk about the easement? Does that road need to stay open? The easement road?
This here, it does need to stay open because it provides access to this building right here.
What's going to prevent people from using that easement road as drive in or drive out, or, overflow parking, or what's going to, separate that?
Well, we have two signs on either side here that say "Do not enter." So it's clear to anyone that's on this site that they should not be using this as an access or exit point to get out of the property. Additionally, the sight distance afforded at this exit is quite poor, so we wouldn't want traffic using that. That's why we've proposed to have these "Do not enter" signs.
That's exactly my point, is that the entrance going out there is very, very poor.
Absolutely.
And that's what my concern is, that people are going to either come in or go out using that because it's so convenient, it's right there. I did it today,
Right.
when I was back there, and, that isn't what is very safe.
The main access to the back of the deli property is actually on the other side of this building here. This is more of just a secondary driveway there.
But it's there.
Absolutely, it is
With
there.
some kind of a barricade, or, like a chain or something more that just
It's
inhabits
not on the
emergency.
applicant's property.
Excuse me?
It's not on the applicant's property.
Oh, it's not?
No.
This is not on our property. We just have an
No,
easement.
I don't mean the
Oh, you mean down the bottom?
down at the bottom, going across there, where it says, no entrance, have some kind of,
Movable barrier.
well, I mean, a chain barrier or something, for emergency
Make it
exit
open,
only,
yeah.
Something like that?
In my opinion,
No?
when you redevelop this driveway and make it a real driveway, it's going to be the best driveway in that section of road, and everybody's going to be using it instead of those other ones.
But it
And
still connects to everybody.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. I think people are more likely to drive out of this driveway than people from this site are going to use the other one.
Okay.
And that's not a problem, because this will have better sight distance and access than those other halfway driveways going down to the property.
Paul, a good point is being made here. Every other property, as you go further north on 202, got individual property, parking, lots, and individual property lines, et cetera. It seems to me that the back of those buildings is like leftover from when the Bathworks store was a Ford store, right? And the back there was used to park cars.
There's an overall site plan that approves all those properties together. You can't, I don't think, mess with that as part of this, because that's a separate site plan that was approved years and years ago for those several properties to the west of this.
And I don't think that we're discussing that they need to change. I think what we're discussing here is, do we want to put something in that would, so that cars cannot drive back and forth, but now you're saying you want it for, the fire department. I understand for emergency purposes. But what about, a chain or something that people would, so that we separate these properties out of it? And that's a concern of mine.
I agree.
My only concern is that sometimes a chain can be more of a safety hazard than a benefit.
Then maybe we can think of something else, separate it out. I mean, do you have any suggestions as to what could go in there?
I think normally, if this was something that the board felt was a formal, I would suggest a gate, a simple triangle gate frame that would have suitable reflectors, and then a lock that the fire department has access to.
If that's the only solution, I mean, that's...
I'm open to any other suggestions the board engineer may have.
Let me make a suggestion for the board to know about. In this village, we have promoted and encouraged people to connect their parking lots formally and informally. And the concept of that has a lot to do with a concept called shared parking. This property owner has more than enough parking for its use. And yet, sometimes things happen. They use access to other parking. By allowing that existing condition to continue without, is very good, because it's very unusual to be able to go backwards and get these easements. This easement exists, as Paul described before. There are apparently an overall site plan with easement access. In new planning design, town center design, this is a village center under the state plan. Shaking out the Hines plan, the Hines plan doesn't know what it's doing, so it's not. The color should be in the probably is going to be unique compared to many other villages because of that history. So unless you really have a big problem, it doesn't sound like a real big problem, you'll never be able to get this back with federal.
If I can make a couple of points about this, this I think is the only building up and down the road where you have a driveway where the width meets the requirement. Every other driveway, every other site plan we've seen has been granted a design waiver for the width of the driveway. This is a wide driveway. The board wants to deal with this issue on a go-forward basis. My suggestion would actually be somewhat the opposite, that we would request that Dr. Scalia agree to a cross-access easement. If any of those, if the site plan comes in further down, we work on eliminating those bad driveways and encourage traffic to come through this way to what is probably going to be one of the safer driveways along that corridor. And it's kind of opposite of what you might think. But I think what we would do is be bringing the vehicles to the best place to go in and out. For example, if the site plan came in for those next couple of properties, certainly we would talk about closing that narrow driveway that's right next to this. It doesn't make any sense to have it. And that's why if you can integrate these as part of an overall development plan, I think it's a better solution. And I don't necessarily think we should foreclose that.
Isn't what you're describing, you know, a de facto municipal parking lot?
Not exactly. True municipal parking lot is something owned by the municipality, and municipal governing body determines who parks there and under what requirements. These are private parking lots. Just happen to be-
But it would work in common with the other property owners.
Right,
That's called
it's a shared parking
It's called
arrangement.
shared parking.
There's going to be a time when, during flu season, when there's a bunch of extra kids in the doctor's office, and they're gonna need a place to park, and, you know, those cars bleed over onto the adjoining lots, it's better than them parking on the driveway, which is where they would
That
park.
other parking lot is, in my opinion, is not as safe.
But it's there. It's safer than them
there.
parking on the driveway. They certainly can't park
Or
on
the street, right?
I mean, this is,
The other concept of village center and shared parking is that by having parking near other properties, encourages people to just walk to the property. And nobody regulates. Nobody really cares.
this is similar to what we did, I think, at, by Annie's Deli in the Sky Nails.
Right,
over
can't
there.
hook 'em in.
It's the
You have
same,
to work very hard to get anybody to talk to one another.
Right.
Having little driveways that make access possible.
But that's all, the Annie's Deli over there, that's all paved and curved and everything like that.
This area may change as well. And
If they come in for an application on the properties west of this, they're gonna have to do that.
Okay.
That's where you keep your planning hats on because there's many different properties.
Yeah.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Yeah, right ahead, Bill. Yeah.
Right now, according to the old site plan, if someone were to enter Dr. Scalia's driveway and wanted to go over to Desario, there's an easement access? There's not?
No, you just drive
You just drive right through.
Just, right. So the question I would have is, has Dr. Scalia anticipated the fact that Desiderios might get busier and people would be driving through his parking lot to get lunch, breakfast, and dinner?
Happening right now.
In spaces, and then interfering with your traffic flow and/or even your parking? Have you thought about that, and is it an issue for you?
Speak into the microphone.
My concern isn't necessarily automobiles. My concern is trucks.
Trucks,
For two reasons. One is, I don't want it going in very quickly that is not going to be safe, or is harder to stop if a child's walking across the parking lot. Other concern is, the board is asking me to spend probably $100,000 on a parking lot. If it's being used and the parking lot next to it is not in good shape, I'm going to destroy the parking lot that you're asking me to spend a lot of money on.
Right.
So I have a concern there.
Yeah.
My main concern is having a medical practice there. So I'll do what's necessary to get approval. It's like we have to do this plan, and that's fine. You know, I came in here with my eyes wide open. If the downside is the driveway's getting damaged, then we're going to have to address it, and it's Desiderios to help us out. And it's not necessarily Desiderios that's the issue, it's the new appliance store that's coming in that had an 18-wheeler back there today.
Yeah.
That concerned me.
That came through your driveway?
I don't know, it was there when I got there, and
I think there's any other way to get there.
that's my concern.
Yeah, yeah,
With
yeah.
an appliance store, it's going to be big box trucks coming in.
Of course, they're gonna go down your driveway.
But there would be nothing to stop you from putting a chain up if it became a problem and you couldn't reach a cross-access agreement with your neighbors.
Absolutely. Up to you, I guess, right?
That's why I asked Paul if there's an easement.
But there's no cross-access.
They don't have an easement for me. That's my understanding. The easement is mine.
To the west have mutual easements among them. Isn't there an easement? Not.
You're separate.
Separate. So my understanding when I brought this up to Mr. Fox, when I met with him, was I didn't want this here. I wanted this closed.
I would too.
He recommended because of EMS purposes that it be open. I understand that and I'm okay with that. I like the idea of a chain. If a chain's not safe, then we can go with that triangular closure that I see at schools. I think I've seen them at schools going on and off fields, that they have that so emergency vehicles can get on a field. If that's the safest route, I would prefer that. Because I don't want to spend $100,000 on a driveway and have it ruined in a year.
My concern is that people are gonna come down that driveway and that's their access to everything, in and out of your driveway.
You know, 30% of our practice is under the age of 18. And then we have, another third that's over 65 who may be infirmed in some way. I have concerns about trucks going through and at a fast rate that can't stop, that could possibly harm one of my patients.
The applicant can actually address it himself. We don't need to mandate it, right, Paul? If he decides he...
Well, I raised the question in my report, why were there do not enter signs there? And I still don't know why there are do not enter signs, because if he's trying to get there and they pull into this parking lot,
They're going to go
turn around and
through.
back out,
Exactly.
which is problematic.
Right.
I think the bigger issue is, and I understand the desire to have a separate parking and not having them together. And I'm not exactly sure how you would handle it.
So my sense is that, again, I don't have a necessarily issue with a car. My big issue is with trucks. And my sense is that the new appliance store is going to have a finite number of vendors. And those are going to be the same drivers every time. So they go in once or twice, and there's a do not enter sign, or there's a gate, or a chain. It only takes once for them to realize that they're not coming in that way again.
Right.
Yeah,
it's perfect, but it's I think a pretty good solution.
Yeah, I'm staring at the plan, just trying to think of alternatives in my head, because, I understand what you're saying about you don't want them to have access.
I also don't want to end it like you were saying, that, if somebody comes before the planning board and wants to change that other property, I agree with you, Paul, we can do that. So I'm stuck between the two. Very concerned about traffic back there.
One thing to bear in mind is that, so going to the west from here, you have a fairly narrow existing building, which has been unoccupied for probably 3 or 4 years at this point. Then you have building that's being used for cooking purposes for the deli, and then the actual deli itself. Realistically, there's a driveway on each side of this skinny building. I would suggest perhaps that the next time an application comes in for these 3 properties, which they're all owned by the same owner, so it's not an issue of ownership, that they could come up with some way of modifying their building arrangements to provide for a formal 2-way driveway. They certainly have the space to do it there. Some of the buildings are really in disuse at this point. So I think that would be one opportunity
to try to improve the access to the rear of those buildings. Particularly, as Dr. Scalia pointed out, the appliance. They have a formal loading dock in the back of that building. So it's definitely anticipated that they're going to have delivery trucks in there and whatnot. I don't know what sort of application they've provided to the township, but that's certainly something to think about when somebody comes in here for an approval. How are they going to handle that kind of truck traffic back there?
I think by closing it off with a gate, they're gonna have to find another solution. I think they'll present themselves fairly quickly to you with another solution. If we leave it open, they're not gonna present themselves.
Now, the back part of it is going to remain gravel, is that correct?
It will be paved.
It is paved, because
Right.
it says gravel here, so that's just current.
Exactly. The edge of the gravel is approximately right here, and so all of this area will be removed, and then the new parking lot will be paved, and this will all be returned to grass and plantings.
Okay. Good move. Okay. Any questions from the board?
If I could
Have more? You, Paul?
I just wanted to briefly touch on the requested variances.
Sure.
As well
Okay.
as the requested waivers. The floor area ratio, because of the modest 200 square foot addition, we will be going over the .17 FAR just slightly by about 60 square feet. Lot coverage right now.
What FAR?
The FAR presently, I just want to make sure I'm telling you the right thing, is .162, and we will be increasing that to .173. Existing lot coverage is 71.6%, and because we're reducing the overall size of the parking lot, we're actually bringing that down to 56.77%. The lot size, it's an existing lot, and it is undersized for the zone. And then front setback, the existing property doesn't meet the required front setback. Obviously, it's slightly over the road right-of-way line. And that won't change as a function of the application. As far as the requested waivers, we're requesting a waiver from stormwater management requirement to provide for stormwater storage of any increase of over 1,000 square feet. What we're doing is we're collecting everything from the existing building, and while the gravel, we theoretically think that it does provide for some permeability, we actually conducted soil testing on the gravel, and it's been so compacted over the years that there's essentially no permeability at this point, so it's essentially impervious. Tree removal and replacement, because we're taking out a lot of these old ash trees that are along the side, the total replacement requirement comes to about 40. Given the open space that we're creating here, as well as some availability up here, we're able to plant 8 trees rather than the 40 that are required. Parking space size, parking is technically required to be 20 feet long. However, we're allowed to have 18-foot wide spaces as shown here if there's a 2-foot overhang provided, which we do. Finally, with respect to the parking and driveway within 6 feet of the property line, we're proposing to have parking within 5 feet of the property line on either side. Presently, the parking goes right up to the property line, so what we're proposing is a significant improvement. That's all.
Okay. Board, any questions for this witness?
Yes.
Yes, go
Could you
ahead.
just tell us the square footage of the property, the building, and how it relates to the parking, number of parking spaces?
Sure. The parking requirement, let me just make sure I'm looking at this correctly. The parking requirement is 1 space for every 200 square foot of the net habitable floor area. So based on the proposed net habitable floor area of 3,084 square feet, we're going to be, the requirement is 15 spaces, and we're providing 17 spaces The requirement of 200 square feet for every space is more in line with a typical office. Something where you would have a physician's office, typically you want to have a little bit above that just to give you some cushion.
Paul?
Before it completely leaves my mind, I've been stewing on this whole access thing. And, you know, I think you can make good arguments both ways.
Mhm.
And I think there are some legitimate concerns presented by Ms. Christie as well as Dr. Scalia. There are some problems here. You don't want to have tractor trailers driving in and out through this parking lot. You know, it's a heavy load. It's not, the parking lot's not designed for that.
Right.
You know, I think frankly that the number of tractor trailers going in and out will be not all that great because initially that facility is being stocked up with the initial inventory. Most of the material, most of the deliveries will be done, you know, on a piece basis and not using tractor trailers, although they would be using boxes. But regardless, I don't think it's a good idea to have a lot of truck traffic through a parking lot for a pediatrician.
I agree.
So perhaps until there's a more comprehensive plan that can be dealt with to the west, I think maybe the gate is the appropriate solution. And then if there's something that comes in the future on the other side, then we can revisit.
Then we can deal with
And we
it.
can revisit it. And one of your neighbors might be knocking on your door, Dr. Scalia, and say, hey, can you help me with this? And then that's up to you to make that determination on your own, on how you do
Ultimately,
that.
my goal is to save you for people
Yeah.
that I serve. So that would be my primary goal.
Yeah.
You know, I have to put my patients first. So,
I understand. So, you know, circling back, I think, you know, given the lack of clarity as we have what may happen to the west, a gate as the solution for now is probably the best answer.
I think that's correct.
Couldn't we just do bollards? That the fire department
You could do
remove?
bollards. The problem with bollards is they're
More permanent.
move, yeah.
They're more permanent.
You know.
Not if you put a sleeve and there is a padlock at the bottom.
In my opinion, I will leave that up to the applicant to come up with a design. You know, it doesn't matter to me what it is, and, you know, you come up with something.
I'd like to make a suggestion. If in fact you do permit access through your yard and driveway to that, you know, that store, maybe you would want to restrict it to certain hours of the day, early morning deliveries, evening deliveries, and maybe additional signage of sorts so that you can actually control it. It's just a suggestion.
Then it becomes the police officer.
No, but
That becomes even more
it's still his
difficult.
property, so he
One thing I might suggest to effectuate some of this is a small sign up by the road that says access for 16 Main Street only. You know, something up there,
too.
almost like a traffic control sign, so people don't think that this is the through street.
Yeah.
You know, just a small sign up there by the road, doesn't have to be, you know, anything fancy. Just like almost looking like a no parking sign, with just some different text.
I think we can leave it to the doctor to decide how he wants to handle it, and we don't necessarily mean to,
And a directional sign like that, I would consider to be a directional sign.
Yeah.
As long as it's less than 2 square feet, doesn't
Mhm.
require any variance
Right.
or waiver.
right.
Well, if you want to authorize a doctor to put up the gate, you have to approve it in the site.
Right.
Because it doesn't change in the site.
Well,
Or Tom, is there any chance there could be an easement by prescription issue here?
I'm sorry, if there could be.
No, I'm not asking the attorney.
The surveyor doesn't show one, but
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, I don't know, has this been open and notorious for a long time?
it doesn't even have to be. Basically, the fact that driveways connect means that the surveyor cannot guarantee to do the resident.
So I think it's the board's then, you know.
Well, it isn't the board's determination of whether you have, you don't control the real property interest of people who claim the right to cross, but the doctor theoretically would like to put up a gate. So if you'd like to put up a gate, you can't do that without it being on site.
Right, a gate, if that's what you...
That doesn't mean that somebody isn't going to sue them claiming the right to
Okay,
cross.
gotcha.
I was saying that I couldn't get approval today if I don't.
If you don't ask for it, you can't.
I have to ask for it?
Yeah.
If you want a
can't build it if
gate.
you don't ask for it. You've asked for it.
You want a gate.
For it, you don't.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that it closes up anybody else's legal rights to knock open the gate or to demand that the gate be open. Because the board does not determine real property use. Only the Superior Court determines property. So if your surveyor tells you that people have the right to cross, you better do what the surveyor says.
The other option is to close it, which is
I
not
don't know.
authorized.
No, I don't know. I mean, you have driveways that cross property lines, and whenever you see that on a survey, that means you have an exception for the title interest for whether people have the right to cross. I'm your attorney, and
Depends on whether or not there's a existing easement.
not a city.
Depends on whether or not there's an existing easement. So even if we gave you the right to close that off and make it, right, put up a hedgerow and a new curb line,
So
your
you're saying that
neighbor.
there is no easement there.
There currently is no recorded easement. The question that's being addressed is there an easement by prescription, which is a matter of law as opposed to recorded. So, in the event you put up a gate, there could be a legal challenge in the Superior Court saying that someone has an easement by prescription.
I think I'll take this way.
Well, you open the gate.
You open the gate.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Paul.
Sorry,
Yeah, I know, we got off the subject again, yeah, go ahead.
In my report, I had a couple of items. I think a number of them have been addressed. One thing as it relates to stormwater, I'd like to talk about that for a moment. There has been a waiver requested. I think the way it was worded on the plan was a waiver for requirement that all impervious be stored. It's not really the requirement, it's the increase in impervious be stored. But the applicant's engineer has submitted this, and taking a step back, it's not a major development under our stormwater. It's minor development. A minor development has a default analysis that says you take 3 inches of runoff from the new impervious surface and you put it in driveways. That's the quick and dirty way to do it. That's why we have that standard there. What the applicant engineer has done is a more sophisticated analysis because of some of the difficulties associated with trying to get that many more dry wells on this property. He's demonstrated that there is not an increase in the runoff from the site based on the analysis that he's done. Based on that conclusion in his report, I don't have a problem with the granting of a waiver from complying with the strict standard of the minor development requirements in the ordinance. So I'm satisfied as it relates to this stormwater. One item, Paul, that you didn't talk about was that 5-foot wide area on the east side of the parking lot of the river. What is that for?
Here is so mowers can access
No,
the back area?
The 5-foot wide parking lot, does it
when-
not on a motorcycle?
No, when vehicles back out, there'll be a necessity for the front of the vehicle to swing out in this direction slightly. So this provides a little bit of a margin, so somebody that's backing out of this space can execute that movement without having to cause a traffic problem there.
I mean, not often done, but I understand the logic. Looking to see if there's any other items. Paul, did you have any issues with any of the comments in my report?
Not at all.
Paul, are you satisfied with the trees?
They're not planting as many trees as are required. I think if you tried to get 40 trees on this property, you'd probably have a mess. I made some comments relative to some modifications to the landscaping to try to make it a little more effective, a little more efficient. And I think between those comments and working with the Landscape Advisory Committee, there'll be a good looking landscaping plan by the time this project is complete.
Okay. Also don't see any dumpsters or...
Provided a dumpster enclosure area over off of the parking lot right here.
Oh, yes.
Just for
I
a
did-
small,
Okay, down at the bottom.
there isn't expected to be a large amount of waste.
No, okay, just covering it. Okay.
And for the record, I'm sorry, I just was in contact with Frank's office, and, well, Frank's not here, he said he didn't have any comments beyond what my report had.
Okay, good. All right. So we covered our bases. The public, we'll open it up. Yes, go right ahead. Name and address, please.
Sure.
Ryan Haggerty, Review Drive, Bedminster. Although for the benefit of the witness and the applicant.
Brian,
Oh, yeah, sure.
sounds like you're going to testify, so, which is fine. Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the true self you got?
I do.
Thank you.
Everybody else in the room knows, but the experts and the applicant don't. I cannot represent the Board of Education, although I am a member of the Board of Education. The Board of Education can be represented only by an attorney. The notice was received by the administration. There have been no intervening meetings, so the Board of Education has actually not had a discussion and not taken a position on this. I am, however, as the Facility and Finance Chairman, feel a personal obligation to report on this at the subcommittee meeting next Tuesday, at the board meeting weeks from tonight, I think. Somebody knows. Having said that, there are two questions I do have to ask, at least. But on the two topics. The one is on the stormwater management. Civil engineer has testified, oh yeah, I'm also a civil engineer by degree, but I'm not doing that tonight. You testified that the stormwater runoff to the adjoining property to the rear, which I believe is the school property, will be improved, at least in quantity. So we have quality, quantity, and total quantity is the three, well, the three factors?
Under a minor development, those standards don't apply.
Okay, I'm asking a general question then. So you're under no legal obligation, but you know, a lot of patients will be at the school. Do you think you're reducing peak, reducing total, or maybe not improving quality? Because you're putting in the vegetated buffer, but you still have the direct catch basins. Sounds like those discharge into the ditch, for lack of a better word. That does get quite wet at times from what I've been told.
Okay, where all this discharge
Oh, you need this back.
Where all this discharges will actually be into the existing drainage pipes that are on the Board of Ed property. There's currently a drainage pipe that comes down from Main Street and connects to the existing drainage inlet on the Board of Ed property. We'll actually be constructing a drainage inlet directly over that pipe for our runoff to go into that. Right now, all the runoff from the site flows off onto the Board of Ed property and eventually gets into this drainage inlet. So instead of having it flow across the fields, we'll actually be keeping it and allowing it to get directly into there and allow less runoff to go onto the fields. As far as the peak runoff, we haven't calculated that. The overall amount of runoff will be reduced. From a quality standpoint, because we're providing some vegetated buffer there, I would expect that would also increase. Plus, we're also providing some stormwater recharge.
So in summary, then I'm understanding is you're going to dirt flow that now goes across surface directly into the pipe. That's what the plan is. That's correct. Thank you very much. Now for the trees, I've heard other applicants in this room suggest if they couldn't fit all the trees in their property, they can off-site donation. I really don't want to add to your financial burden. We're really trying to get ripples into the town, but I don't know. I think you have enough trouble financially starting off a business from the ground than impose more things. But if you do, I just want to encourage people to donate trees to some places. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think unless you have anything else, Paul? No? Okay, we're ready for your next witness.
Okay, our final witness is John Pugh.
Yes.
I know that the township planner did not have any questions beyond what was in Mr. Fierro's report, but could you discuss the overall planning and development of the property and how that would impact the...
Yeah, I'll try to be brief. Paul represented all the variants. The C2 variances are required, and the D4 variance for floor area ratio. So the proposed improvements are an improvement regarding floor area ratio because floor area ratio D4 variances are intensity variances. They have nothing to do with the use. Intensity of the increase, as Paul testified to, is 0.003%, 59 square feet overage. So the intensity of the use, I don't think, is really a factor in this case. D4 variance really should be granted. The reconstruction of the whole building with respect to the positive criteria, the aesthetics of the overall building on the site, the whole site will be improved. They're going to put windows in the front like there used to be, landscaping, decrease of impervious coverage, etc. This promotes the general welfare to the community. And just to conclude, there's going to be no substantial detriment to the public good, and it won't substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan. It promotes conservation of a historic use. The building, I think, was built in the 1920s. They're going to improve it aesthetically, and just the intensity of the use, once again, has to do with the wet weather vestibules. It's really not office space. So again, the intensity issue is just not there. That's really about it.
Any questions from the board?
Not for this.
Oh?
No.
No. Okay, you want to
Thank you, Mr. Field.
have any summary of?
That concludes our...
I'm sorry. A question for either Dr. Scalia or Mr. Yarrington. That is signage. We haven't talked about signage all night, and did you present in front of the Historic Commission? And could you tell us about your signage?
So we did present, and it was approved by the Historic Commission, and I think the sign is on this on plan, and it would go, do you have elevation? Down here on the front elevation. So that was the only signage we were looking at.
Okay. And they were fine with that?
They liked it very much.
Mhm.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you. That concludes our presentation. I think that we've presented that there's an overall benefit to the community, rehabbing a historic building, making it more architecturally and aesthetically pleasing. I think Dr. Scalia has spoken a little bit about the benefits to the community of having his type of practice in this community, so it's available to, from the young to the old, and people that may not have the means otherwise to get proper medical practice and proper medical attention in this area. We believe that there's no, substantial detriment to the town. We would respectfully request that any approval tonight, if one's granted, that it would include an approval for Dr. Scalia to submit building permits so that he can continue on with his practice. He's fully aware that on a verbal approval, he runs the risk that when the resolution comes out, there's something that could be contrary to what his building permit is, but he's willing to take that risk, I believe, right, Dr. Scalia?
I think one thing we have to get our arms around, because I know Dr. Scalia is very anxious to move on this project. He's been doing some of the demolition work to date. There's outside agency approvals that need to approve this. The site work can't begin until Somerset Union Soil Conservation District has approved the plan. There is work in the DOT right-of-way that can't be done until the DOT permit is approved. So I think if the board were to say he can proceed at his risk, then we need to parse out those items and, kind of stage those to when those permits come in.
And we're fully aware of that. The application has been submitted and, will be subject to approvals before we proceed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Tom.
Still open to the public.
Yes, still open.
For comment.
Anything more? Okay.
So if the board is ready, you're moving to approve the preliminary and final site plan with the D variance, the floor area ratio, and C variance for things that are not existing or are being exacerbated. It's also granting the waivers requested with the conditions of bulky boards and the French report. The applicant is authorized to install a gate as described in the rear side of the parking lot as requested. The applicant is authorized to proceed effective immediately, provided all other approvals are obtained and in such a manner that it is acceptable to the township engineer. So, for example, the DOT right-of-way work will be done without the DOT permit and no soil disturbance without the Soil Conservation District approval. And obviously you have to get all your other building permits and things as well.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, we need a motion.
Motion approved.
Second?
Trina?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Good luck and thank you.
A good thing.
Oh, what do we got here? Any comments? Any comments from the Board of Adjustment? Seeing none. Lamington Road, I guess we've taken care of here, Paul.
Yeah, that won't be on the agenda anymore. I don't think we need to carry that anymore.
Yeah, I know. It's like an old friend.
Who knows, if they may come back.
We can dump all the paperwork?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like an old friend.
Get a contract with that.
Okay, so how about, we have these other pending things, Paul. We have Bedminster 2. Did you say we heard from them, or we did not?
We have not heard from them yet.
No?
They may be going the way of the...
I don't
Yep.
know.
Oh, no.
They're just hanging there. They've got to renotice, and I understand they're thinking about new plans, but we haven't.
Okay.
Crossroads Business Center is on for October.
Is what? I'm sorry.
On for October 12th.
October 12th. Okay. And I understand we have nothing for the first Thursday of the month? So we have another vacation day, huh?
I'll make sure you send that reminder out.
Nothing on the 5th?
No, nothing on the 5th.
Future happy dance in October.
All right, do we hear a motion to close?
So moved.
Okay.